Hi, everybody. This is Robyn Mundy from the Buffalo FamBase Network, and we are live from Wyoming. Oh my God, we're live from Wyoming. We're live from Wyoming. Um, Post game after the Steelers game, and I'm here to just share with you some of my feelings about what happened in this great 38-3 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if you haven't been on Twitter, you should check and see what the Buffalo Bills account did with one of their post game tweets. It's really kind of nice. I'm not going to spoil it for you. So I'm going to bend your ear for a bit and hope that you'll tag along with me because we have a lot to talk about regarding this game. So I've got 3 stars, and they're not really in order, but I don't care. 3 or 1, whichever way you pick it. Gabriel Davis, because, like, please, I have no words for what he did today. Absolutely no words. His chemistry, his relationship, his mindset of knowing where to be and how to be where he's supposed to be. And Josh is just, I don't know if there's any words for it. It's their chemistry is remarkable. And so his play today has to go in the top 3. But I wanna spend some time and love, because I think it's well deserved, for a couple of other guys who played today and I think made names for themselves. We were all worried with being without Jordan Poyer and Tremaine Edmonds at the same time. In my opinion, I thought Tyrell Dodson had an incredible game, and Justice Radford and I interviewed Tyrell sometime this summer. Forgive me, I'm old, so I can't really pull up the date. Um, but Tyrell was, like, very solid today. I'm gonna leave all the details for all the analytics people. I don't have the numbers handy. I'm just kind of here, um, throwing stuff out, but oh, there's Justice. Ah! Thank you, Justice. He's helping me.
Hello.
You're helping me. Um, but I was just talking about Tyrell Dodson, who I thought
Yeah,
was.
he.
Go ahead.
No, I think he got a start today. When I was in the stadium, they announced him, so I'm not sure if he got the start. It's hard. It's harder to analyze the game when you're in the stadium versus like at home watching it on TV. But he had a pretty good game today. He was awesome. Like you said, we interviewed him. He's an awesome person as well. So it was good to see, that he shares some success, with this team. But let's just talk about the first half really quickly, right? First drive of the game, the Bills. Who was that? It was somebody was turning. I think it was Taiwan Jones was returning the kick. He muffed it a little bit, fumbled around, and ended up at the 2-yard line. Incomplete pass, and then Devin Singletary running it went nowhere, and then all of a sudden, a 98-yard bomb to Gabriel Davis. What was your thoughts on that?
Oh, I was talking about that before you came back on. That play will be forever remembered, forever, forever. I mean, there was nothing like it that I've ever seen before in terms of the chemistry that Davis and Josh Allen have is something like way beyond, the norm. Yes, there's great pairings that we've seen, over the decades and that sort of thing. But this pairing between Davis and Allen, I think is really one for the ages. It's very special. Hi. I think Robbie just hooked on, so that's kind of cool. Um, but yeah, I mean, what do you say about Dave Davis? I didn't even know if he was going to be playing, because his ankle's been kind of iffy. And what did he do today? He just like blew it up. absolutely blew it up. But I also would add, at the same time, I want to talk about Khalil Shakir because
Yeah,
in Wyoming, Khalil Shakir is treasured with a question mark because he played for Boise State. And that's in the same conference that Wyoming is. So there's always some joking about that. But I'll tell you what, Khalil Shakir today said something in terms of being able to come in and play poised the way he did under pressure. He came through like a champ. And I think that that bodes well for his future, and it does for the Buffalo Bills as well.
yeah. How cool was it that Khalil Shakir and James Cook, two of the offensive rookies who we were looking forward to seeing this year, both get their first touchdowns in the same game at home for us all to see and to cheer for them. That was pretty special.
It was pretty special, and you brought up Cook's name, and that's interesting because we've all been waiting for him to kinda get over his rookie-itis, being a little bit off the first couple times that he's had his chance. I think he broke through that today. The
Yeah,
mental thing that you have coming out as a rookie, and I can't even imagine what it's like to have the stress of the expectations. He came from Georgia. So, of course, everybody expected him to walk out on the field and be instantly terrific. And it's taken him a little while, and that's understandable. We all have to understand that rookies develop at their own pace and they get used to the NFL game at their own pace as well. But I thought he broke through that rookie wall today. And I was happy to see it.
absolutely. What about Josh? I mean, I know you talked about it a little bit, but at halftime, he had 348 yards passing. He finished the day with only 424 because they really didn't have to throw that much in the second half, obviously. So there was no reason for him to have too many more yards. But do you think that Josh Allen is the best player in the NFL?
At this time, yes, I do. And if you ask me if that was possible, when he played at Wyoming, I would have said, like, okay, well, he could probably be very good in the NFL, but I'm not sure what his potential would be. And you would never know that. See, this is the thing about Josh Allen, I think that people didn't realize, but the people that saw him play at Wyoming, we saw this thing in him. I tried to tell people about that before he was drafted, and people were, laughing and joking about it. But Josh Allen has this special it thing that we always talk about. And you could see this in him at Wyoming. You could see this will to win, this idea of putting the whole game on his own shoulders. This guy that didn't have an offensive line really to speak of in front of him at Wyoming, he made plays happen. He made magic happen on the field, and you could see at Wyoming that he had that potential. So he comes to the NFL now, and he got the right training, from Jordan Palmer. And now we're seeing him reap the benefits of all the work that he continues to put in to correct every little complication in his game. He's working on them. He's constantly trying to get better. I think Tom Brady was his role model, and, most of us don't like to talk about Tom
Yep.
Brady, but Tom Brady had this idea of excellence in everything he did, and if you watch Josh Allen training, that's where he's at right now, and yeah, I think we're paying dividends, but how cool is this that we have this game before we play Kansas City next week?
Exactly. And like you said, Josh just, he's just worried about getting better. And I think that is the awesome part about having Josh is because he's out there playing like an extraterrestrial. Like he's just out of his mind, unhuman, otherworldly. And then, they ask him, what did you think about throwing for 400 yards and 350 yards at halftime? And he says, I missed a few throws. Like nobody's worried about the throws he missed, but he's worried about the throws he missed, and he's focused on trying to be even better than he was today, which he was. I mean, almost pretty much perfect outside of the one interception that really was just a jump ball. He gave his guy an opportunity, and the other guy came down with it. Levi Wallace got one, but like it wasn't a bad throw, and he still is worried about what can I do to get better, and how can I be better for next time. Um, but
That's
what
a
was really cool to me,
Go ahead.
is that the defense, allowing 3 points today. Coming into the game, we were one of the top defenses, but I don't think we were the number one defense in scoring. Now, I think coming out of this game, we'll be the number one defense in scoring. That average will go down significantly. Um, do you think that the defense is good enough to maybe slow down Kansas City?
Yeah, I do. And here's the thing. It People think that having our inexperienced backfield in the defense is an impediment, and I'm not so sure that's the case, because mentally there's a different mindset that young players have going out trying to establish their careers versus guys like Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, who have played together for 5 years. Their mindset is different, right? They're playing as grizzled veterans versus you have DeMar Hamlin, Jaquan Johnson, and these guys back there who are trying to establish themselves and have a career in the NFL, and their mindset is different. You could see that out on the field today because they were very aggressive. At times, I thought maybe a little bit too aggressive. DeMar Hamlin had that one hit that I thought was pretty intense. But I think overall, their defensive backfield is not as much of an impediment as people think it is. Now, as far as our linebackers go, holy cats. Milano is a flat out stud. And, I don't think he gets enough love and appreciation, on a national level. And our defensive line, what the hell? They spoke for themselves today. It didn't matter who was in and who went down, next guy up, and they performed. So I think the big thing against Kansas City will be a mental thing, whether or not the defense can go in and feel like they have that same feeling they did today. Today they had that sense of inevitability. You could see it early in the game. They came out and it was like, nope, you guys are not taking this from us. We are going to take this game from you. And that is the same attitude I think that they need to have when they go into Kansas City.
Absolutely. I tend to agree with you. Obviously, we know the Kansas City is going to be a little bit of a different beast, but I think overall the Bills have what it takes to stop them and to keep them from scoring, to keep scoring, keep close to the board, and from keeping them from scoring more than us. But looking at this game today, does it make you feel any better about the Chiefs game, or do you think the Bills can compete with the Chiefs next week? This is a question from our dear friend Robyn.
I didn't quite catch the question clearly.
Do you think the Bills can compete with the Chiefs next week? Was Robbie's question, although you answered
Oh,
it already to a degree, but you can go ahead and expound if you would like.
sure, sure. And thanks, Robbie, for being here. It's good to have you around. Um, I think that the defense, again, it's a mindset. I worry about injuries in terms of people like Jordan Phillips, with a hammy, he went out again. That bothers me because that hammy, is going to bother him, I think, probably for the rest of the season with those big guys. That I hope he gets a chance to heal it up, but sometimes that can be a problem. But anyway, I thought our defensive line held up really well. And, Von Miller, when he went down for that minute and a half or whatever it was, scared that, pants off of probably every Bills fan, but thankfully he came back in the game. As far as how they're going to play against Kansas City, it's anybody's guess. But I think the bottom line is in the key difference, as opposed to games in the past, might be Von Miller, in terms of he might be, like he himself said, just that one ingredient that the Bills defense needs to be able to overcome Patrick Mahomes. Because you have to have four men rushing, and four men have to get to Patrick Mahomes. And, that's just a fact. And so, however they game plan, it's clear to me that the best way that they can do it is by, getting their four guys up front to be able to put some pressure on Patrick. And as I said before, I have every confidence in our defensive backfield, because even if they're inexperienced and they're going to make mistakes because they're inexperienced, it doesn't matter. I won't say it doesn't matter, but I think it's important to note that they're young, and teams don't have a book on them. Nobody really knows what their tendencies are because they haven't had a lot of reps. So, in that sense, it could be interesting because, how do you know that DeMar Hamlin is going to, react to a certain play the same way that Micah Hyde did, or Jordan Boyer?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
That's okay.
My no, that was a great point. Especially, as far as we need pressure. And I wanted to ask you, I'm gonna have to I have to go upstairs, so I'm gonna leave the chat for a second. But I wanted to ask you, you mentioned how Von Miller said he thinks he's that last piece that can
Mhm.
take the Bills over the top. I want to ask you, Auntie Robyn, do you think Von Miller is the final piece we need to finally get this monkey off of our back and beat the Chiefs in the postseason?
Absolutely, I do, and I can start enumerating the reasons. Um, if you listen to any press conference these days, by Von Miller, you can see why he wants to be a general manager, because he is really careful to talk about other players, what other players are doing, what we can do together, we being the defense of the Buffalo Bills, um, to achieve the goal. And the goal always, in his mind, in Von Miller's mind, is winning a Super Bowl. That's why he's in Buffalo. But if you listen to the mantra that he has, and this is the one that I love so much, he says repeatedly, don't blink. Don't blink. And if you think about it, it's just two words, but those two words mean so much. And to each player on defense, they think about that every time they're out on the field. Don't blink, don't blink, don't blink. And it's a mindset that, again, I get back to the word mindset, but that's my thing. Um, that's exactly where Von Miller is at. And he absolutely thinks that he can be the difference maker. Do we think that he can be the difference maker in terms of taking us to a Super Bowl? I think so. Yeah, I do. Because the big reason is his leadership. His leadership, you can see it on the defense. God bless Tremaine Edmonds and everybody on the defense. But there has, to this point, in my opinion, been a lack of a face. Okay, Isaiah McKenzie thinks he's the face of the franchise, but the defense needs to have somebody who can step up and really be a vocal leader on defense. And I think that's Von Miller. So if you have that leadership, that alpha leadership on defense, and we've had it on offense with Josh Allen, there's a balance that exists now that's better on the team because you have leadership. You don't have a leadership void on defense. And I want to be careful how I say that, because I'm not critical of past leadership, but there wasn't one player on defense that everybody thought of like you do on offense with Josh Allen. And now you do with Von Miller, because Von Miller is not only an experienced vet, he really truly wants to aspire to be a general manager. And if that's his goal, he completely understands that you have to look at more than what you're doing or maybe what a defense is doing. You have to look at what a whole team is doing. And you'll notice when he comes to the stadium for games, he wears a different t-shirt honoring somebody different each week. This week it was Brandon Beane. Well, that was very cool because I cannot think of a time when a player came out with a t-shirt emblazed and honoring their general manager. I don't think I've ever seen that. And so what does that mean? I think it means that there is a leadership understanding on his part that he come in. I'm talking about Von Miller wearing the shirt with
The
Brandon
Brandon Bean
Beane
shirt. Hmm.
on it. I just thought that that was a very interesting statement, and the point being, Von Miller absolutely knows, and he's taking responsibility. And I'm pretty sure he's probably been told, by Brandon Beane, look at, we want you out there being you. And that's what he's doing is he is putting his personality all over his stink all over that defense from front to back and having that leadership. I honestly think that is the last piece that they needed. They got it all together on offense with Josh Allen. They've got depth now because we've seen that. Holy cats, where we're down to the bottom of our practice squad, and these guys are playing good. You see guys like Isaiah Hodgins just stepping in there and making meaningful play after meaningful play. So they have depth, check. Okay. And now they have a face of the defense, and that face is Von Miller.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the way the defense has been playing so far this year, last year, of course, we had the number one defense. But if you ask people who, watch the game closely and analytics and DVOA and all that other stuff, it's like, well, they weren't really the number one defense. They just had the best, scoring defense as far as they let teams score less points than everybody else. This year, it really doesn't seem to matter. Our pass rush is good. Our secondary is great. Our linebackers are great. Everybody looks really, really good, and they're shutting people down. And it feels good, to finally have a defense that you trust as much as your offense. It's like a special thing. But let me ask you this, Auntie Robyn. There was another game today that meant a little bit to us. Of course, it's the Miami Dolphins versus the New York Jets, and the Miami Dolphins lose. And you know what that means, ladies and gentlemen. The Buffalo Bills are once again first place in the AFC East. What does that mean for this team, Auntie Robyn? And do you think that the Bills are in danger to surrender that at any point this season?
I don't. And as far as the Dolphins and the Jets game go, I've said this to some people around Twitter on social media that I think the Jets are a very good football team in the making. And my prediction at the beginning of the year was that we would go 4-2 in the division, and that we would lose a game to Miami and lose a game to the Jets. And I'm concerned about the Jets. Um, and I know I say that in chuckle, but you know what? They had an excellent draft. They have a very good head coach. Their quarterback is developing. They've had some bad luck with injuries and that sort of thing, but I think to ignore the Jets would be at your peril. And as far as Miami goes, um, I'll be very honest and kind of blunt. I think the Tua situation has like sucked the lifeblood out of them. Not only losing their second string quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, going down. I think that what happened with Tua is a hangover for that team, and as well it should be. And I think that there will be outcomes yet to be determined in terms of how that whole thing went down with Tua. I don't think that situation has been completely resolved. nor should it be, in my opinion. And we are going to see a Miami team that I think has its lifeblood sucked out of them at this point. I don't expect them to be able to recover, quite frankly. Um, Tua was the face of their franchise, and it's like all of a sudden he's gone, and now plug the next one in, and they think they're going to go. I don't think so. So, as far as being top of the division, isn't it funny that we were this far into the conversation and we haven't even mentioned the Patriots? Uh, you know what I mean? It's like, what?
Absolutely. Right.
Okay. So the Patriots, I don't fear them. I honestly think the Bills should take both games against them this season. I think that Josh Allen has their number, kind of like he had Miami's number. Of course, Miami, hats off, they won the last matchup, but it's going to be a dogfight from now on. And like I said, I don't really know what's going to go down with the Miami Dolphins with the Tua situation, because I think it runs deep.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It does. And I mean, they so what happened was I saw a report from Ian Rappaport. Um, what they said was that Miami didn't do anything wrong in terms of going through the protocol and checking to see if he had a head injury and all this other stuff. Tua Tagovailoa said that he had a back injury, and they tested him with the requisite tests, and apparently they came back that he was okay. However, although they didn't do anything technically wrong, they said that there was a flaw in the system, and they pointed that out. So now they are going to update the system for concussion protocol. And speaking of concussion protocol, Teddy Bridgewater, Tua Tagovailoa's backup, actually left today's game with a concussion. So, things in Miami are not looking great. And as of right now, Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets are 3-2. And the Miami Dolphins they fall from the number 1 spot all the way to the number 3 spot behind the New York Jets. And the Patriots are in dead last, if I'm not mistaken. But looking at it just talks about how crazy this league is, and this division. They're fighting for second place at this point, right?
Oh, absolutely. And if, and that's always a big if, because injuries can, neutralize any situation. And so you can't predict that. And gosh, this year, I just have to ask you, Justice, does it feel like to you that there's more serious injuries in the first 4 games across the NFL than we've seen in the past, or is it just a feeling I have?
No, I mean, I can't really speak to across the NFL
Mm.
because I'm sure there are some numbers that might be able to answer that question better than I can. But speaking from the perspective of a Bills fan and looking at our team, the
Yeah.
injuries have been very, very unfortunate. And I remember last year, like, we were one of the more healthy teams in the league. We didn't really have to deal with too many injuries. A lot of our guys were healthy and they were able to contribute for the entire season. This year, we have gotten so many injuries. I mean, Jordan Phillips has been injured. We've seen Christian Benford get injured. Micah Hyde, one of our best, players, is out for the season. Jordan Poyer hasn't been able to play. Obviously, last year we did have a major injury in Tre'Davious White, but the secondary was able to still, make some plays. But it definitely has been a little scary. But we talked about rookies earlier, and everybody today was just the play of it was rookies day, right? James Cook had a touchdown, Khalil Shaquille had a touchdown, and Kyer Elam had an interception. So that was really, really special.
It definitely was. And, this is something it's interesting to watch the journey of Kyer Elam. He's had an interesting situation when you think about it, developing alongside of Christian Benford, throughout the summer and training camp. And you see this trajectory with rookies when they develop different at different paces not every rookie comes out and is like ready to go 1,000%. And Kyer Elam was a little bit behind Christian Benford in he was, Elam was the first round draft pick. Benford was drafted in the 6th round, and they're both rookies. And Benford comes out and basically outperforms Elam in the preseason, etc. And Elam, how does he respond? That's another Sean McDermott thing that he does so
Absolutely.
well. He does it so well. He takes a rookie like Elam and he develops his confidence. And he does that through making sure that he doesn't lose his confidence and his belief in himself, but at the same time, tweak him enough to say, look at, yeah, this 6th round guy, he's going to start in this game. That had to be humbling for Elam, don't you
Absolutely.
think?
For sure. I mean, if I'm the number one pick for a team, if I'm the first round pick for a team, and a guy who gets picked 5 rounds later, he got picked even after he who shall not be named, right? Um,
Yes.
and and this guy comes in. I'm supposed to be taking the reins. I'm supposed to be the guy opposite of all pro Tre'Davious White, and we're supposed to be the quarterback tandem of the future. And I got a guy in Dane Jackson who's also a late
Oh,
round pick who is balling out of his mind, right? He's
balling.
playing extremely well, and you can't supplant his spot. But then also a 6th round pick comes in, and he is now taking reps away from you. That has absolutely got to be a humbling feeling. And for him to show the fortitude to still play well, to not complain, to take his lumps and just go out there and continue to perform. I think it says a lot about who Kyer Elam is as a person and as a player. And those are the guys that we want to have in Buffalo.
Yes, and it's interesting that you brought that up because I wrote a little note to myself during the game that I wanted to talk about Khalil Shakir, because Khalil Shakir is another one who, in terms of, if you listen to Sean McDermott during his press conference, he will drop these little hints to you about players. And one of the things that he said about Shakir was that he hoped that Shakir would learn how to relax, and that tonight perhaps maybe he would take the time to enjoy the victory. Okay, translate that. That said to me that one of the things that he would like to see Shakir do is settle down a little bit. He's working too hard.
Yeah,
He may be, just a little bit too compulsive and hyper focused
yeah.
and trying too hard. And this is the message that McDermott is trying to give him: is settle down.
No,
Just
that's a really good ear actually, because if you Khalil Shakir just had a post game and I was listening to a little bit of it, and he was talking about he had a drop during the game and it really bothered him.
yes.
And having that touchdown, getting the touchdown, was able to help him take his mind off the drop. But from those words, you can tell that the drop still bothers him. And although it does make me happy to hear the coach say, hey, like, forget about it. It also makes me very happy that he is a little paranoid about it, right? Because that tells me that he never wants to let that happen again, and he
No.
wants to be the best that he can possibly be. And yes, there are times where you have to relax, but I find it very endearing that he has that type of mindset to just want to be better every single play.
It is almost to the level, and those of you who know me know that I'm a retired psychotherapist, and one of the things that I notice about players, great players, almost all of them are certifiably almost OCD,
Yeah,
okay? Obsessive compulsive disorder. And this is where you have people who are just like singularly focused. And as far as what you would have in a football player, they focus so intently and they are so driven that they have to have almost this mental mindset that would fall into that category, basically, of obsessive compulsive disorder, because they are so entirely the entire part of football devours their life. And there's nothing outside of that. There is nothing outside of focusing on improving. There is nothing outside of what they have to do to move forward. There is nothing outside of improving every single day, every little thing, every tiny little thing. And that's what makes a champion. And that's what Khalil Shakir, I see that in him. He is so driven to the point where I think the coach is saying, take a night off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just take a
Um,
chill pill.
yeah, just relax a little bit, still have that, that hunger, but also, and I think that also has a lot to do with him being a rookie, this being his first year, him not completely being adjusted to the game yet. I'm sure he'll learn, when to go 100 miles per hour and when not to, as he grows as a player. And also I want to talk about today how, obviously the last game we played was home versus the Tennessee Titans. I've now been to 2 home games and they've both been blowouts. And as much as I want to take credit for it, I will, it says a lot about how the Bills feel comfortable at home. They're out here just completely outplaying teams and making them look like they're non-contenders. And the Titans were a team that were number one team in the AFC last year. The Steelers were a team that made the playoffs as well last year. So these are like not slouches per se, and the Bills are making it look like they're college teams out there and they don't even belong on the same field. And I think that just says how important it is for the Bills to have home field advantage in the playoffs, right? Because if you're going to see Baltimore come here, we were lucky to get that win in Baltimore, but it was close, right? But I'm sure the game goes a lot differently if we get home field advantage. We're going to have to go to KC next week, but whether this. However that game goes, they're going to be a tough matchup in January. And, so it will be better for them to come here versus us having to go back to Kansas City, right? And all the other teams, that are a threat to us in the AFC, we need to see those guys come through Buffalo because, it gives us that much of an advantage. And we clearly love playing at home more than we like playing away.
That's so true. And especially when you consider the weather factor. And once again, even though temperature wasn't particularly an issue, how much was the wind? Because you were at the
It's
stadium. How
windy.
much was the wind really a factor today?
So the Steelers missed 2 of their 3 field goals. And I think the wind did have something to do with it. Tyler Bass got one blocked, I believe. I think that was blocked. But Josh's throws were completely fine. It was like cutting right through the wind. He was throwing deep passes, he was going short, whatever he wanted to do. But from the perspective of somebody who was there, like, and I'm 6'9", 350 pounds, like I'm a large man, right? I was getting blown, with the wind. Like
Okay.
it was pretty windy out there. So, it was encouraging for me to see Josh throw a 65-yard pass to Gabriel Davis from the 2-yard line. Or there was another one. I think it was the other one was also a long pass to Gabriel Davis. That one was to the end zone. But, for those balls to cut through the wind and to be on a rope the way they were and to get to the target where he wanted to get them and it wasn't shifting or anything like that, I think it's really special. And, back when we first drafted Josh, people was like, oh, he has a big arm, he's got to play in Buffalo with the cold. And I was like, it doesn't matter. But it really does. It really does.
It totally matters. And I'll tell you what, that's the other thing that people were not tuned into about him. If you have ever been in Laramie, Wyoming, I can tell you, if you can throw in the wind in Laramie, Wyoming, you can throw in the wind anywhere. Anywhere. And the winds of Lake Erie, I grew up just south of Buffalo, and the winds coming off the lake are something. I mean, there's no question about it. But the winds in Laramie are like at a whole different level because you're also at 7,200 feet above sea level. And that was the thing that you could see with Josh at Wyoming, because at altitude at 7,200 feet, he could throw the ball 80 yards.
Wow.
I'm serious, because the air is so thin up there.
Yeah.
And that's what you saw about him, was like he just cut through the wind. And it makes a difference, because all I could think about when we drafted him was, holy crap, he's going to be able to throw through the wind. And sure enough, that's what Brandon Beane was talking about. You want a quarterback that can throw the ball through the wind in Buffalo, New York. And the thing about Josh is just what you said. He's got this rocket arm. And so you see him, and it's not only like, okay, he can throw the ball from here to there. He can take it and spin it around and have it come down, exactly where the quarterback or where the receiver needs it.
Yep.
And he's got that ability to throw almost like a pitcher in baseball.
Yep.
You want a curveball? Okay, we'll give you a curveball. Right? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
insane. It's
Absolutely.
absolutely insane. And you saw flashes of that when he was in college, just little flashes of that. But that rocket arm, you just looked at the weight, the way he could throw the ball. In college, he had terrible foot mechanics. Terrible. He flopped around with his feet like he was a clown, those great big clown shoes. And his mechanics were terrible. But when you saw him put his body into the ball and throw, and make a 60-yard bomb, no matter what it looked like in terms of mechanics, it was a thing of beauty. So, you knew that he had the potential to be able to do that if he could correct his mechanics. He didn't have, all the big stuff that Ohio State has and all
Yeah,
that other stuff,
absolutely.
at Wyoming. And so most of us here, we knew what he could be if he had the right environment. But let's face it, if he ended up being drafted by the Jets aren't as bad now, but
No,
um,
but they were bad when they drafted Darnold.
exactly.
Yeah,
And if they had drafted him, I don't think he would be the quarterback that he is today.
me neither.
So some of it is to hats off to, Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills for helping him develop. Although we have to say the Nathan Peterman experiment did not allow Josh to have proper time to develop as a rookie. And he just got tossed in like,
Yeah.
fire into the fire. And some quarterbacks, I don't think, would have really been able to deal with that mentally. He wasn't really prepared. He didn't, he says, boy, he was seeing ghosts when that his first start against the San Diego Chargers. He was like, oh, I don't know what I'm looking at. But it didn't destroy him.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him different than, say, other quarterbacks who would, I think, have been more mentally affected, by being thrown in too soon.
No, you make an absolutely amazing point. It was like a perfect storm for Josh to, be from, Wyoming, and for him to have to deal with those conditions and that weather, and for him to be the man, in the city, and everybody to love him because of his character and also how good he is on the field, right? And then to also not be this 5-star recruit who everybody wants and everybody knows. He had to kind of take his lumps. He goes to Reedley College for JUCO, and then he goes from there, to Wyoming, where he, obviously was able to, do what he did. But even in Wyoming, it was like, again, this is a small school. Nobody really knows him. And we're the reason he was even a top draft pick was because people were banking on his physical ability, excuse me. And that's it. It was just a physical ability. They didn't take into account how awesome of a person he is. They didn't take into account how smart he is, how athletic he is. It was literally just his big arm, right? And for
If I
us
could
to,
just interrupt you here for a moment.
what's up?
Excuse me for interrupting you, but that's such an important point. In my opinion, it's such an important point, and it's what people did not see about him when everybody thought Josh Rosen was going to be the future, in Buffalo. They weren't taking into consideration Josh as a person. And
Yeah,
you didn't know where he came from. You didn't know how he was raised. You didn't know what his value system was. But when you go to a small school like Wyoming, people got to know him, People got to know him as a person and get to know his family, etc. And it made a difference because you're absolutely right. He wasn't a mollycoddled 5-star recruit. In my opinion, someday we win a Super Bowl, they'll make a movie about him. I
Oh,
mean,
they absolutely will.
his story is so freaking incredible. You have no idea. You send out 998 letters, to all the different colleges in the United States, and nobody wants to even see you. I mean, the man was humbled beyond.
Yeah.
And then you take it to the level that he got criticized before the draft, and the way that people made fun of him, and the way that people tormented him, and the
Mhm.
way that people said that no way was he going to be any good, and that all he did was defy every single thing that people said about him every step of the way, right here. And we saw him develop from that. And he has a fire that burns inside of him that I think is rare. It's very rare. And I hope that the team around him is able to help him win a championship, because he truly deserves to be in the Hall of Fame if he gets there.
You are 100% correct. You hit the nail on the head. People weren't just talking about him before the draft. They were talking about him during the draft. They were talking about him after the draft. They were talking about a year after the draft, even up to 2 to 3 years after the draft.
Yes.
His rookie season, he had nothing to work with. Nothing except LaShawn McCoy, who was 3 years from retiring.
Well,
So I
he had
mean, as
Kelvin
much as I love
Benjamin.
LaShawn McCoy, he wasn't the LaShawn McCoy that he wasn't in his prime anymore. So, you look at that, and he was able to take that team. They, fell in love with the kid, and they learned how to play with him. He learned how to be a quarterback that next year. And even in the second year, when he was learning how to be a quarterback, people was like, oh, he's trash. Oh, he's going to flame out. Oh, he can't do this. He can't do that. The mental fortitude to be able to stick through it, to be able to learn, to be able to develop with his team, and then come that third year, the explosion happened. And I don't know if you remember, but even in the third year, while the explosion was happening, like this bomb has already exploded. People are like, oh no, it's going to regress. It's
It was
only a couple games.
insane.
Yeah,
You never heard this about any other quarterback in the history of the NFL in terms of criticism
exactly.
and non-belief on a national level. And I have to tell you, for me personally, it was wild, because I have been a Josh Allen supporter. Everybody knew it, that knows me on Twitter. And I had to shut my mouth for 3 years, because when a person is, when they draft, you don't know what they're going to develop into.
Yeah.
You don't know, where things are going. So I kept my big mouth shut, and endured, and I say endured, a lot of harassment from people, oh, yeah, there's your big guy, blah, blah, blah. He's not going to be any good, blah, blah, blah. I just shut my mouth. And then when he exploded, I opened my mouth. And I keep on opening my mouth, and I'm going to open my mouth. And I tell people on my grave, I'm going to have, I told you so. And that's exactly what it's going to be, because nobody believed in Josh Allen. I heard this, and this is like therapeutic for me. I heard all the boos in the field house when the Bills drafted Josh Allen. And I will never forget it, because it's probably the lowest point that I've ever felt as a Buffalo Bills fan, because I was embarrassed. I was completely embarrassed. It was like, you got to be kidding me. You're booing the guy that they just drafted as the face of the franchise.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about him. You are just group thinkers. And I don't know what your stuff is, but if you cannot at least get behind your quarterback that got drafted for your future, I feel sorry for you, because maybe, just maybe, you're wrong and he's going to be good. Case closed, right? And now I'm sure I see it all the time. People look back, well, I didn't think he was going to be any good, but I'm glad he is. It's really hard for me to not like say, oh, really? well, that's not what you said to me 3 right?
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
now it's almost like he's so good now that it's not even fun to like make fun of people who were
it
down
doesn't.
on him now. It's like,
No, and
well, now we all know he's great.
I embrace them,
Yeah.
now. I embrace anybody that that was down in the dumps about Josh. It's okay. It's really okay. But always remember from that experience, do not get sucked up into groupthink, and do not be, too judgmental before you have a chance to give somebody a chance. Basically let them show you that they're crap.
Yeah.
Let them show you that they're no good. But don't go off, projecting that this person is garbage. I mean, we literally heard stuff like that. Oh, he's trash.
Yeah.
He's whatever. No, you learn from this. Maybe now you'll understand that you're better off just waiting, like they say, the 3 years that you need to have somebody in the league before you decide they're trash.
Yeah, for sure. I think that draft class, 2017 draft class, is the perfect example of
Oh
do not
man.
judge a book by its cover. You take a look at Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. They're supposed to be the Golden Boys. Now they both play for the same team, and neither of them are like have a
Answer.
hold on the starting position.
Exactly.
You take a look at Josh Rosen. He was supposed to be better than Josh Allen. I don't even know if he's still in the league, and if he is, he's not contributing anywhere. And then guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson were the guys who everybody counted out. Change your position. You're garbage. You're trash. You're never going to succeed. And then they went through their lumps and they came out on top. And I'm super proud of both of them. You're absolutely right. It is, you should never judge a book by its cover. You should always allow people the opportunity to grow.
Lamar, speaking of which, I just have to say this one thing, that I think that Lamar and Josh will always have a very special relationship because they were both so. I don't think Lamar got it quite as much as Josh, but there were people that doubted Lamar.
It was the first season for Lamar. He got it too, but then his second season he won MVP, so like people backed up off of him.
Right, right. But
But
before the draft, there were lots of questions about Lamar. Oh, he's a running quarterback, and he's going to do this and that and whatever. And isn't it funny that Lamar and Josh turned out to be the best of that class?
yeah, they turned out to be some of the best quarterbacks in the entire league. For my money, they're two of the top three. As of right now, Brady isn't playing like a top three quarterback. Rodgers isn't really playing like a top three quarterback. It's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson to me. So it is absolutely beautiful to witness. I'm super happy because, like, Auntie, like, think about this, right? We've had Trent Edwards and JP Lossman
Oh my
and
God.
Brian Brom and Kevin Cobb and Kyle Orton and like all these guys who, like, some of them did nice things for us in the time, right? And I appreciate them for what they did. But to come from that and get Josh freaking Allen, like, this kid can throw. The pass to Gabriel Davis, he literally flicked his wrist and it went to midfield. It was crazy, right? And what's crazy is that it was on a rope, which means he could have thrown it further, but he had to throw it to where Gabriel, in the wind, exactly. He had to throw it to where Gabriel Davis was going to be, not as far as he could, was going to be, right? Excuse me. And it's crazy to think now that we have this guy who can throw the ball on a rope 65 yards with no effort. He can run a 4.5. He can jump over linebackers. He can run past safeties, and he can stiff arm defensive tackles. Like, this guy is the anomaly of all anomalies.
Yeah.
He is quite literally the unicorn. Look, and Spin said it, 260+ yard air passes into the wind in one game. It's crazy to see, just to think about what this kid can do, how he does it, with where he started, what we were talking about, his rookie season, his first year, his second year, where he comes from. And the most beautiful thing about it, I think, is when you have a guy like Josh Allen, you pair him with a guy like Stephon Diggs. These are two of people on the planet who have every reason to be egomaniacs.
Yes.
And they absolutely love each other. And they love this organization. They love this city. They love this team. And to have all of it come together like just one big brilliant pot of gumbo is like I couldn't be happier to be a Bills fans. We truly deserve this. We really do.
Yes.
We've went through so much. We deserve this.
Yes. Absolutely. Now, as far as how that all came together, Sean McDermott, okay, we can talk about Brandon Beane, like in a separate conversation, but Sean McDermott, and people know this about me, that I focus on the intangibles. Analytics are very, very important, and you have to have, an understanding of what's going on with the team from an analytical perspective. But Sean McDermott is the first head coach, in my view, who placed as much of an importance on having the right chemistry of personalities together.
Character.
I have never seen, even beyond character, he refined it to the point where he knows exactly what kind of player is going to work good with somebody like Matt Milano.
Right.
What kind of a player would work really good opposite of Tre'Davious White? What kind of head coach, do you know of any that did this before? When he first came in to the locker room, instead of having things the old way they used to be by position group, he said he spent an entire off season trying to figure out which person he was going to put next to the next person in the locker room, next to each other. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he changes it every year. And so what he's doing is taking personalities like Ed Oliver, for example. Ed, we all know Ed came into the league. He needed to focus a little more.
Yeah, people were saying he had a bad attitude. He was a distraction. He was yada, yada, yada.
And, and I don't think he did have a bad attitude. I think his attitude was, I just go balls to the wall, and I think that's all he thought he had to do. Well, guess what? You got to do a lot of film study. You got to, you got to do a lot of homework. Well, he probably ended up in a, locker next to Tre'Davious White or something.
Yeah.
Who knows everything about being perfect
Yeah.
in terms of film study and discipline and all of that sort of thing. But Sean McDermott did something that other coaches didn't do. He recognized the locker room shouldn't be divided by positions. You've got the corners, DBs over here and the offensive line people over there. He's the first one, as far as I know, that recognized, what? I need to put this player with this player because this player needs to have somebody in their ear all the time going, what about this? And that's brilliant. When you think about it, that's brilliant. Okay. So he's got people in the locker room set up a certain way. He has a leadership group that he's identified, in terms of, I think he has like the captains. They're very specifically designated in terms of what their responsibilities are. And as I understand it, as Sean McDermott has become a more veteran head coach, he's given more responsibility to the leaders and not feeling like he has to control everything. You can see how that's helped the team, right? In terms of developing a sense of confidence in themselves, as opposed to having the head coach feel like he has to control everything. The leaders of the team control a lot of what goes on in terms of the personnel issues within the team, etc. It's very interesting because it's different the way Sean McDermott has carried on business. When you hear him talk about a person's DNA, do you know what he's referring to? You know what it is when he's talking about somebody's DNA? Well, it's not exactly their, 23andMe profile. Well, that's it's a short term for the team chemistry. Okay. The mindset, how does this person work with that person? All of that is stuff that he obsesses about. And I'm certain that he's like way off the Richter scale for OCD, McDermott. I mean, totally. But honestly, he takes this stuff to the max. And I think he's the first head coach that does it to the depth that he does it in terms of the psychology and understanding personalities and being able to talk to a person like Ed Oliver one way and then be able to talk to a person like Tre'Davious White and speak the same language, but get their message across because they're two different things, two different people, and they hear things a completely different way. And he understands that more so than any other coach. And I think that's a great big reason for the success that he's had.
For sure, for sure, and that just adds to that big brilliant bowl of jambalaya, of gumbo, of whatever you want to call it, of having a Sean McDermott come in and change the entire mindset of the locker room, change the entire culture of the organization, right? And then to draft an all-pro cornerback the same season in Tre'Davious White, and then to bring in another genius in Brandon Beane, and then to draft your franchise quarterback here the next season, and also your linebacker in Tremaine Edmonds, right? And then also Teron Johnson. And then, it's kind of like when you wake up in the morning, right? It's like, the more good decisions you make, the more good decisions you'll make down the line, right? If you wake up in the morning and you eat, I don't know, Cheetos and Starbursts for breakfast, you're probably not going to have the best day, right? You're going to make bad decisions throughout the day. But if you drink a lot of water, if you eat a healthy break, you're going to make better decisions throughout the day. And it's kind of like that. Like, they made good decisions at the infancy of this, this little project that they had going on where, I didn't know who Sean McDermott was when he first came. I mean, I knew who he was. He was the defensive coordinator from the Kent Panthers, but I didn't want him as my head coach. I was tired of the new guys, right? We had to. I wanted someone who had done it before, and they made the right decision, and it just goes along with that perfect storm. And all of that has led up to the Bills now being 3-1. No, 4-1. 4-1, right?
Yep.
Yep. 4-1. Dominated. Oh no. They dominated 4 of the 5 games. The only game they didn't really dominate was the Ravens game, but they still came away with a win. And this is where we at. The Bills just had a great game. They just performed in front of all of their fans and performed well. Josh Allen had, as I mentioned this earlier, he had 348 yards at halftime. Like, what even? How? What?
That's insane. But
yeah.
That is the perfect. Is this not like the perfect game for them to mentally get ready to play Kansas City?
It is. It is.
They come in, they take care of business, they do what they have to do. Hopefully, we don't have too much on the injury list, to make it worse. But as far as mindset goes, this is exactly how you want to go in.
And to take it a step further, because you're absolutely right, take it a step further, you have your guys like Kyer Elam and Khalil Shakir and James Cook, your young guys who you want to be able to contribute. They get a little more confidence going further because they've got their first touchdown. They've got their first interception. Now they can be major contributors going into this game versus Kansas City versus maybe, James Cook hadn't been performing very well. Khalil Shakir made some mistakes, so maybe they weren't super confident. Now going into the game, they can be more confident because they've had that little taste, of success and knowing that, hey, I belong here. I can perform well. I can do the things that needs to be done for us to go ahead and get these wins.
Yeah, and the thing that's happening is when you talk about guys like Shakir, you're going down the depth chart and you're giving reps to these guys during the season. When it comes playoff time, if we have, if there's injuries or anything like that, we have confidence in knowing these guys can step in, and they will have had a lot of reps and they will be able to do that effectively. And as far as KC goes, there isn't a better way to go into Kansas City than rolling like they are after this kind of a game, from a mental perspective. I would like to see, and wanted to ask you this question. I'm still having, a few spasms about our running game in terms of consistency. and just being able to go out on the field and show that you can consistently run the game, the running game, and you can do it effectively and you can pull it out anytime you want to. I'm not quite seeing that yet, and I wonder what you think.
It's funny, myself, Mookie, and Ruben Brown, we're discussing this last night. It is a little concerning. That it does concern me a little bit. However, today was encouraging. Devin Singletary averaged 7 yards a carry. James Cook averaged 7.8 yards a carry.
Oh,
Zach
wow.
Moss had a carry for 7 yards. Josh Allen, I think he averaged even more yards than 7 or carry. So, the efficiency and effectiveness of the run game was there today. They just didn't run it a ton. And also the Steelers had like way more time of possession than us, because as soon as we touched the ball, we scored. It was like 2-3 plays, 65 yards, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so excuse me. So it's a little encouraging today because it shows that we can run the football. It just is a matter of if they want to run the ball. And I don't think we'll see too much running happening next week, if I'm being
And they
completely
don't have
honest.
to. That's the
Yeah.
thing, like, they don't have to run the ball the way that they're playing, at this point. That's true. I think that when the weather changes and stuff happens, you want to have the confidence to know that the running game can take over and do the job. And I guess I'm not entirely convinced that we're there yet.
That's fair.
But I do think I heard McDermott say, the offensive line is a work in progress. Cromer's, system is different. And some of the players are different. And we all know that with an offensive line, you want the same thing all the time, because that's what makes you better on the offensive line. And so it's a work in progress. And according to McDermott a couple weeks ago, I remember him saying that he thought that they were starting to make progress with the run game. And I felt that was encouraging, because I understand that it's a process. He said that he thought within the next few weeks we would see the running game become more consistent. And I'm taking your word, Sean. Let's get the job done, because I really think that even though as terrific as our passing game as and explosive as it is, and as much fun as it is to watch and everything, I am an old woman and I am used to old time football. And I still think there's a place for being able to run the ball to dominate a game. And that's just something I would like to see the Bills do more consistently.
For sure. I also am encouraged that Josh didn't run a ton today. That makes me feel a lot better, because as much as I love Josh and what he can do with his legs, I do not want to see him running the ball all the time, taking those big hits. I would much rather see him use his arm and use his leg when absolutely necessary. So I completely agree with you. We definitely need to see more of Devin Singletary, as far as I'm concerned. And Spin, that's a great point, bro. What would his numbers have looked like if he had 4 quarters, where he didn't have to hold back? He had 350 at halftime. And, at that point, we were all looking to see, like, what's the record? And I believe the record was like 530 or 540 or something like that. Josh could have definitely broke the record today if the game called for it. If the Steelers had been any sort of kind of, competitive, I think Josh easily could have broke the record today. As far as passing yards go, he came roughly 100 and some yards away from it, and he didn't throw the ball all third quarter or fourth quarter. So, it says it. Josh Allen had 5 carries today for 42 yards. So, he didn't run the ball too much. 5 carries is okay, but it wasn't like he was out there having 13 carries like he's just had some of these games and jumping over people and stuff. Like, I love it in the moment, and if he gets up, I'm happy with it, but I don't want to see it too much.
No, We don't want to see him doing that too much. And
Yeah.
it's inside him. And I have to tell you, it's an instinct in him that you will never, and I don't care what people say, you will never get him to stop running if he sees a hole. If he sees a hole, he's going for it. And it doesn't matter what Ken Dorsey called or whatever. He sees hole, he runs. I mean, that's just inside of Josh Allen. I do think he's getting better at, okay, maybe this isn't such a good idea. And looking for alternatives, but absolutely, it's an instinct inside of him that he's always had, and it's part of the I'm putting it all on me. If I have to
Yeah.
put it all on me to win the game, that's what I'm going to do. And I think that's been appropriately coached out of him to some extent, because we know that about Josh. We remember his first couple of years when it was like, oh God, here he goes again, and he's learned from that. But there's still a part of that you don't want to lose, right? I mean, there's a little bit of that you want your quarterback to always have inside of them, and he's certainly, in my mind, always going to be the kind of quarterback who, if there's any doubt whatsoever, he's going to tuck it and go. He's not going to
Absolutely.
be afraid.
He
He
is not. He is going to lower his shoulder and run right into someone. Doesn't matter how big or small or fast or big. It doesn't matter. They're gonna. That's just who Josh is, and I love him for it. But it also scares the hell out of me sometimes. So,
Please stay
but
healthy.
yes, absolutely. Oh man, I knew I missed you, but I forgot how awesome it is to be on a live show with you. So at Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, you pick, but please make yourself available because we have got to get on stream together again, Auntie Robyn.
Yes, and I'm
Absolutely awesome.
serious about this. If you ever want to jump on post game, holla.
Okay, all right, I got you. Absolutely. I had the absolute pleasure of meeting Kristen Kimmick today, as well as Leslie. I love those girls. And so I got to see their beer, and so I'm giving them like a little shout out here. They didn't ask me to do this or anything, but
You have to tell me how it
they're
tastes.
awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna do like a live taste test. So like,
What taste test? Let me know.
oh, that's actually pretty good. It's not what I was expecting, but it's pretty good.
Hey, one
It's
thing.
called Big Berry Bean as well.
Big
Shout
Berry
out to the
Bean.
Mafia Babes.
Bill's
Actually,
Mafia Babes, Big Berry Bean.
ooh.
We got to do it.
Yes, shout out to the Bills Mafia Babes.
Awesome. He's got the shirt to prove.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, 100%. I had to support my girls.
Yes, you do.
They're awesome. I love them. And I don't know if you're like an official member, or you're an honorary member, or
I'm
what.
kind of the honorary member, the godmother over the FamBase kind of network thing. And I do want to add this because I'm getting ready to return to Buffalo for the first time in 3 years since before the pandemic. I will be in the homeland November 9th through the 14th for 2 Sabres games and the Bills versus the Vikings. And I'm telling you what, I am so ready to come home.
Yes.
I absolutely cannot wait to see you in person.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. That's awesome. I cannot wait. I am clearing my schedule because I have to spend every moment with you that I can.
One of the things
Absolutely.
I'm planning on doing is, and Dell didn't know about this, but I just sort of decided, well, on Friday, November 11th, I'll be spending most of the day at 26 Shirts. And I'm going to hang out and sell shirts and make coffee and do whatever I have to do to hang out with Dell and the gang at the fan base, because I haven't seen everybody in 3 years. And so I'm hoping that on that day, people will like come down and say howdy and, that sort of thing. And I'll talk more about it before then. But I am coming home.
We'll get some flyers, or not flyers, but we'll get some like promotion up on the the main page and everything, so that anybody who wants to meet the amazing Robyn Mundy will have the opportunity to meet her and talk to her a little bit.
I am so excited to be coming home again. I mean, I'm probably going to cry,
Me
so
too.
I'm going to be like warning everybody ahead of time. I'm just going to be a crying baby. But how cool is it that this is happening for all of us now? This team, this year, everything about this season is very special. And it's something I preach a lot, but I want to leave people with some thoughts in terms of remembering to enjoy this season. Okay. Every game, good or bad, every game in this season is a journey, part of the journey.
Yeah.
And some of it's going to be good and some of it's going to be not so good. And the not so good part, and I wrote about this last week, is like old habits die hard. The team doesn't play well, and you get into this, oh my God, here we go again stuff. And we have to resist doing that, because this season, I'm 67 years old, and so I've seen a lot of Bills seasons in my life, and there are so many that are unremarkable, and so many that lived within the era of the perpetual mediocrity that we lived for 20 years and more. This season is special, and we need to enjoy every single game, every moment of every single game, along the way. Because it's too easy, to get caught up in the drama of one thing or another. And you'll look back and you'll go, oh God, I wish I would have blah, blah, blah. And don't do that. Don't let yourself get into a negative state of mind about anything this season, because we're not, we're only a few games in. We have no idea where this is going to take us. And even if it doesn't take us where we think we, want it to go, it's all a lesson along the way. And, there's a lot of wisdom to be gained even through failure. In fact, most of the time, and we've had so much practice at dealing with failure, haven't we?
Gain a lot of wisdom.
We are so smart now. But the point is, enjoy the moment.
Absolutely.
Enjoy every moment, because you never know when it's going to come again.
Yeah, that is a beautiful message that literally every person on this planet can take with them and appreciate. So thank you so much for that, Auntie. Thank you for doing this. I mean, I know I joined you. This was your thing, but thank you for stepping up and doing the post game show for us.
Oh, wow. I really did that. I by the last minute, like, okay, here you go. It's yours. I'm like, what?
I know. I'm sorry.
I apologize to everybody that happened to be online on this broadcast before Justice came on.
No, I
I
came to see you.
I'm working on my hostess mechanisms, that I can do this. But anytime post game you want to jump on, I'm here. Okay.
Right,
I love to talk about the Bills, and I certainly love to talk about them after they win.
For sure. Right. Yeah. It makes it 10 times better. My week is going to be amazing now.
Yeah, no doubt. You're going to be busy with about 10 podcasts.
Yeah. Oh man, don't remind me.
But at least you're going to be having fun with them this week.
Seriously.
If it was 10 podcasts after a bad loss, no.
A Bills blowout win that I got the pleasure to enjoy, and the Dolphins lost. So now we're back atop the AFC East. It's going to be an amazing week. It is going to be an amazing week. So thank you guys for tuning in with us. This has been an awesome post-game show. I had a blast. It's just been a great day overall, to be honest. You guys know we appreciate all the support you guys give us, every single like, comment, subscription, retweet, share, repost, all of it. We appreciate all the love and support you guys give us, because you guys know we do it for you. So, we love you guys. And I love you, Auntie Robyn. Thank you so much for doing this. It's a pleasure, as always, to talk with you. And I'll talk to you probably in a couple of minutes. But thank you guys for tuning in. This is the official network of the Original Bills Mafia, and we are out. Go Bills.